So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Revive Uzumaki Clan? So let's start the series. The Hokage's office was never quiet. The murmur of administration was its own kind of white noise, a sea of mission reports, infrastructure requests, and diplomatic correspondence that threatened to drown its occupant daily. Naruto Uzumaki sat behind the great desk, a monument of dark wood that had once felt impossibly large for a boy who'd sat in its visitor's chair. Now, it felt like a shackle. The afternoon sun slanted through the window, illuminating not his face, but the endless stack of documents before him. A peace forged in fire and blood still required the mortar of bureaucracy. Shikamaru, ever present and looking as weary as Naruto felt, slid another folder across the polished surface. Trade agreement amendments from the land of tea. They're quibbling over tariff percentages on rice wine again. A real drag. Naruto grunted, signing a request for new academy textbooks with a practiced flourish. His signature, once a jagged scrawl, was now firm, deliberate. Handle it. You know the percentages we can tolerate. Obviously. There's also this. Shikamaru's tone shifted, a subtle flattening that made Naruto look up. The Jonin commander placed a small, nondescript storage scroll sealed with a wax insignia Naruto didn't recognize, a stylized whirlpool, half-faded. It was found in the deepest archive of the Nara clan. In a section we haven't fully catalogued since before the Fourth War. My father's notes suggest it was part of a transfer from the Hokage's restricted vaults decades ago. For safekeeping. It bears your name. Naruto's breath itched, a tiny, almost imperceptible catch. The whirlpool. The Uzumaki crest. He'd seen it on his mother's jacket in the fleeting moments of their meeting within his soul. He'd seen it etched in fragments on the ruins of the Temple of Nirvana. It was a ghost, a symbol of something that was everywhere in Konoha's foundations yet nowhere in its living memory. My name? Naruto asked, his voice carefully neutral. Not Lord Seventh. Not Naruto Uzumaki, Hokage. It says simply for Naruto, heir of the whirlpool. In very old script. Shikamaru's dark eyes were watchful. I haven't opened it. The security seals are intense. They hum with a chakra signature that feels familiar. Like yours, but older. Purer in a way. Naruto reached out, his fingers hovering over the cool parchment. He felt it immediately, a deep, resonant pulse that answered the chakra in his veins. It was a call, a whisper in a language he'd never been taught but somehow understood in his marrow. Kinship. Leave it with me, Naruto said, his tone leaving no room for discussion. Shikamaru studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Just be careful. Things buried that deeply are often buried for a reason. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. The meeting with the Earth Daimyo's envoy is in 2 hours. Try not to get sucked into a historical vortex before then. Alone, Naruto broke the non-secure wax seal. The containment seals beneath were another matter. They were a masterpiece of layered complexity, barriers keyed to Uzumaki blood, chakra density triggers, and a final, elegant lock that required not a password, but an emotional imprint, a surge of protective, clan-oriented intent. It was a lock designed to keep out cold, academic curiosity. It demanded a connection. He pricked his thumb with a shuriken, let a drop of blood fall onto the scroll's edge, and pushed a thread of his chakra into it, thinking not of Konoha, but of the lonely, silent weight of his name. Uzumaki. The seals glowed a deep crimson, then dissolved like smoke. The scroll unfurled. It was not a long document. The handwriting was precise, elegant yet frantic, the script of someone writing against time. At the top, a title. On the nature of the erasure, a testimony for those who remain. And below, the opening lines stole the air from the room. If you are reading this, child of the whirlpool, then you are likely the last. Or believe yourself to be. I am Uzushio's last keeper of records, writing in the final hours before the silence falls. They come not from the sea, but from the shadows of our allies. The great villages, who feasted on our knowledge and wore our symbols, have decided the feast is over. The power to bind the world is too dangerous to leave in hands not their own. Konoha, our sister, watches from afar. Their inaction is a choice. Their silence is complicity. We are not being destroyed. We are being unmade. Our history is being rewritten as a tragedy of overreach, our annihilation framed as a natural consequence of our own might. Do not believe it. They fear the chains we can forge, the truths we can seal away, the life force we can manipulate. They fear the Uzumaki will, which says no to the very laws of nature. This scroll contains the true maps of Uzushio, not the ruined husk you may find. It holds the locations of our memory vaults, sealed pockets of reality where echoes of our greatest minds, fragments of their consciousness, are preserved in fuinjutsu matrices. Not souls. Not ghosts. Echoes. Imprints on the world's canvas, like paint left after the portrait is scraped away. It also holds the registry of our known bloodlines, scattered by the diaspora before the final storm. To revive us is not to resurrect. It is to remember. And remembrance, for an Uzumaki, is an act of defiance against a world that wishes to forget. But be warned, every echo you summon, every bloodline you acknowledge, will exact a price. The dead remember the cold. They remember the betrayal. And the world that buried them will not welcome their shadow. We are not a clan of conquerors. We are a clan of binders. Our purpose was balance. Rebuild us not as we were, a glittering, feared citadel, but as we should have been, a people of memory, of connection, of stubborn, enduring will. Do not carry our name lightly. It is not just a name. It is a scar on the face of history. Make it mean something again. The words burned into Naruto's vision. He sat motionless, the bustling sounds of Konoha fading into a distant hum. The cheerful, orange-clad boy who had yearned for acknowledgement was gone, replaced by a man who wore the mantle of the world's peacemaker. But beneath that mantle, a colder, older truth had just taken root. He had always known the Uzumaki were destroyed. He'd carried the loneliness of that knowledge like a birthright. But this was different. This was not a natural disaster, a war lost, a tragedy. It was a decision. A surgical excision performed by the very world he now led and protected. Konoha, the village he loved, the legacy of his father, had watched. Had benefited. A slow, deep rage began to simmer in his gut, cold and dense, unlike the hot fury of his youth. This was not a rage for himself. It was a rage for a people rendered invisible. For a mother he never knew, whose entire world was erased. For a legacy of whirlpools that had been smoothed over into a calm, convenient sea of forgetting. He read the scroll again. And again. He memorized the maps, the complex Fuinjutsu formulas for accessing the memory vaults, the list of names, hundreds of them, of Uzumaki who had fled before the fall, who might have seeded distant bloodlines now ignorant of their origin. The clock ticked. The meeting with the Earth Daimyo's envoy awaited. The Hokage had duties. Naruto carefully re-rolled the scroll. The seals reactivated under his touch, this time keyed solely to him. He stood, walking to the large window overlooking his village. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows. He saw the faces of his friends, his family, Hinata, Boruto, Himawari. He saw the monument to his father. He saw the village that had once shunned him, then celebrated him, and now expected him to be its steady, unchanging heart. But something had fractured. He was no longer just Naruto Uzumaki, Hokage of Konoha. He was Naruto Uzumaki, heir of the whirlpool. The last keeper. And the dead had just handed him a ledger full of unpaid debts. A soft, familiar growl echoed in the cavern of his mind. Took them long enough to send a message. Kurama rumbled, his voice lacking its usual sardonic edge. I felt the destruction. The screams. The sudden severing of so many bright, stubborn life forces. The sage's descendants, hunted to near extinction. Even I thought it was just another human war. But this was a culling. You knew? Naruto thought back, his mental voice tight. I knew they were gone. Not the how. Or the why. The bijou were weapons, Naruto. We were traded, bargained, fought over. The politics of men were a distant, petty noise. But I remember, after Yuzashio fell, the balance shifted. The fear in the hearts of the Kage of that era, it wasn't grief. It was relief. And greed. Kurama paused. This path you're contemplating. It's not a path of battle. It's a path of excavation. You will dig up graves the world has grassed over. The rot you find will stain you. And every echo you summon will remember the betrayal. They will be angry. They will be broken. And their price will be a piece of you. Naruto watched a leaf, blown by an errant wind, cling stubbornly to the windowpane before being torn away. I'm not bringing them back for power. I'm not even bringing them all back. I'm acknowledging them. Giving their memory a place to live besides a forgotten scroll. Semantics, Kurama grunted. To the world, memory is power. To acknowledge the crime is to accuse the criminal. And every criminal you name will become an enemy. Even those within these very walls. Naruto placed his palm against the cool glass. The village lights began to twinkle on as dusk approached. A beacon of order, of willpower, of fire. But the whirlpool did not emit light. It pulled things in. It preserved what sank into its depths. He turned from the window, the scroll a heavy secret against his heart. The Hokage's robes felt suddenly alien. The title, a mask? The meeting with the Earth Daimyo's envoy was about future resources, future alliances. It was about moving forward. But Naruto had just been handed the keys to the past. And he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to his core, that he could not move forward honestly without first facing what had been so deliberately left behind. He straightened his robes, the Hokage's hat sitting on its stand beside the desk. He would go to the meeting. He would play his part. But later, in the deep, silent hours of the night, he would unseal the scroll again. He would study the map to the first memory vault, located not in some distant land, but hidden deep beneath the forest of death, right under Konoha's nose. A secret within a secret. A scar upon a scar. The revival would not be an army rising. It would be a whisper, growing into a voice. And the first step was to listen. He left the office, the scrolls secreted away in a seal on his forearm. As he walked the familiar halls, he nodded to the shinobi who bowed, his face the picture of calm leadership. But inside, the whirlpool had begun to turn. Chapter 2: The First Echo. The forest of death was never truly silent. At night, it thrummed with a predatory life, the skittering of giant insects, the low hoot of owls the size of men, the sigh of wind through colossal leaves. To Naruto, cloaked in a simple, dark Jonin outfit and a nondescript hooded cloak, these sounds were a familiar language. He moved without a sound, a shadow among deeper shadows, his chakra suppressed to a whisper. The Hokage could not be seen doing this. The Hokage was supposed to be in his residence, asleep. The map from the scroll was etched behind his eyes. It didn't lead to a cave or a ruin, but to a specific, ancient Hashirama tree, its trunk wider than a house, knotted with the passage of centuries. According to the keeper's notes, the entrance was not a physical door, but a conceptual one, a seam in reality, maintained by a few Injutsu matrix that drew on the tree's vast life force to remain stable and hidden. He found it. The tree pulsed with a familiar, warm chakra, the legacy of the first Hokage. But beneath that, like a faint, dissonant chord, he felt something else. A cooler, sharper frequency, one that resonated with the coil of seals on his forearm. Uzumaki chakra. Not living but preserved. He placed his palm against the rough bark, over a world that perfectly matched the Uzumaki spiral. He didn't push chakra. Instead, he let his own signature bleed out, the vast ocean of his reserves, the fox's fiery tang, and beneath it all, the specific, stubborn wavelength of his bloodline. He thought of the keeper's words. We are a clan of binders. The bark under his hand didn't move. It unwove. The wood grain parted like a curtain, not revealing a hollow, but a space that shouldn't exist, a vertical slit of absolute darkness that hummed with a low, powerful vibration. It was a tear in the world, held in perfect, precise stitches by few Injutsu of a complexity that made the 8 trigram seal look like a child's doodle. Naruto felt a profound sense of reverence, and a spike of fear. This was his heritage. This was the art that had marked his clan for death. He stepped through. The darkness resolved not into a chamber, but into a memory. He stood on a circular platform of polished, pale stone, floating in a starless void. The air was cool, dry, and utterly still. Around the platform's rim, 12 stone plinths stood, and upon each rested not a scroll, but a glowing, intricate seal formula suspended in midair, rotating slowly. Each formula was a unique masterpiece of geometry and intent. They pulsed with a soft, colored light, crimson, indigo, emerald, gold. In the center of the platform, a larger, dormant seal was inscribed into the floor, a complex whirlpool design. These were the memory vaults. Not libraries, but prisons for consciousness. Echoes. A visitor. The voice was not a sound. It was a direct impression in his mind, dry, papery, and brittle with age. It came from the crimson seal on the plinth to his right. After so long. Show yourself. Naruto lowered his hood. In this place, there was no point in concealment. Uzumaki features. A second voice observed, this one from an indigo seal, sharper, more analytical. Diluted. Strong chakra signature. Abnormal vitality. Carries the fox's stench. And the weight of leadership. You are of Konoha. It wasn't a question. Naruto felt laid bare, not physically, but historically. I am Naruto Uzumaki, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. His voice echoed strangely in the non-space. A ripple seemed to pass through the seals. A susurrus of impressions, not quite words, Kushina. The last vessel sent. Minato. The flash. Konoha. Why have you come, deluded heir? Asked the crimson voice, whom Naruto was beginning to think of as the scholar. To gawk at the ghosts? To plunder our arts for your village? No, Naruto said, meeting the glow of the seal. I came because I learned the truth. About the erasure. I read the last keeper's testimony. Silence. A deeper, more profound stillness. The keeper succeeded then. The sharp voice from the indigo seal, the analyst, said. He bought us this continuity with his life. And what do you intend to do with this truth, Naruto Uzumaki? We are echoes. Imprints. We cannot fight your wars. We cannot rebuild our city. I don't want you to fight, Naruto said, his voice gaining strength. And I can't rebuild Yuzushio. But your memory doesn't have to be trapped in this void. Your knowledge shouldn't be lost. And your clan doesn't have to be extinct. The clan is gone, the scholar stated, a finality like a tombstone closing. The blood is scattered. But it exists, Naruto argued, pulling the scroll's mental registry to the forefront of his mind. Descendants who don't know what they are. People carrying pieces of your legacy in ignorance. And there are others. Survivors in hiding, maybe. And you would what? Gather them? Declare a revival? The analyst's tone was scornful. You would paint targets on their backs anew. The world tolerated the last scattered dregs because they were weak, ignorant, and few. A reconstituted Uzumaki identity is a threat. Konoha will not protect you. They did not protect us. The words "they did not protect us" hung in the void, heavy with centuries of bitterness. I am Konoha, Naruto said, but the words felt hollow even to him. He was, and he wasn't. That was the new, agonizing truth. I am the Hokage. I will create the protection. A third seal, a gentle emerald one, pulsed for the first time. The impression it gave was of immense sadness. Child. Hokage. You carry too many hats. The village you lead is built upon the graves of our artisans, their knowledge absorbed, their downfall conveniently forgotten. The will of fire warms itself on the ashes of the whirlpool. You cannot serve both masters. Naruto clenched his fists. I'm not trying to serve masters. I'm trying to do what's right. To give you a legacy that isn't just a cautionary tale in a sealed scroll. Sentiment, hissed the analyst. The same sentiment that made our ancestors send Kushina to Konoha, trusting them with our most vital secret, the art of Jinchuriki sealing. And what did it avail us? When the siege began, their reinforcements were delayed. Their treaties were re-evaluated. Sentiment is a luxury for those who are not being hunted. The anger in the echo was not hot. It was cold, logical, and devastating. What do you want? Naruto asked bluntly. You've been here for decades, centuries. What do you want? The seals pulsed in unison, a discordant symphony of colored light. Justice, said the scholar. Vengeance, countered the analyst. Peace, whispered the sad, emerald seal. Purpose, said a fourth, a golden one, quiet until now. I can't give you vengeance, Naruto said, looking at the analyst's indigo light. That path leads to the same cycle that destroyed you. I won't weaponize your memory. Then you offer us nothing, the analyst stated. I offer you a choice, Naruto said, stepping toward the central seal on the floor. He studied its design. It was a transfer matrix, a conduit. I can't bring you back to life. But I can transfer your echoes from this vault. I can anchor you to me. The void went absolutely still. Explain, the scholar demanded. The Keeper's scroll described a ritual. A temporary, partial merger. I'd become a living vessel for your echoes. You would experience the world through my senses, have a voice in my mind, not like Kurama, but as passengers. Advisors. You could see what the world has become. You could share your knowledge on your terms. And you could help me find the others, the scattered bloodlines, and guide me in whatever revival is possible. The risk was monumental. He was proposing to invite multiple ancient, traumatized, and potentially hostile consciousnesses into his own mind, already shared with Kurama. The cost, the scroll warned, would be spiritual, a dilution of his own self. You're an idiot, Kurama growled internally. Inviting more ghosts to the party? My prison is crowded enough. They're not prisoners. They're refugees, Naruto shot back. They are bombs, Kurama corrected. Bombs of grief and rage. You would be our jailer, the analyst said, echoing Kurama's sentiment. No. You could leave. Return to the vault or fade if you choose. The anchor would be voluntary. I'm asking for a chance. For you to see if the world deserves your knowledge. For me to learn who my people really were. The sad, emerald seal pulsed softly. You seek connection. You are so like Kushina in that. All heart, blazing like the sun. But the sun can be blinded by what it illuminates. I am willing to pay the price, Naruto said, kneeling and placing his hands on the edges of the central seal. He began channeling chakra, following the patterns from the scroll. The central whirlpool glowed, lines of light connecting it to the 12 plinths. The price is not yours alone to pay, child, the scholar said, its tone shifting from skepticism to something like grim respect. To join with you is to feel your pain, your burdens, your loyalty to the very system that failed us. It will be agony for us both. Then we share the agony, Naruto said, his chakra flooding the matrix. The void began to hum, the seals on the plinths brightening. But we don't have to be alone in it anymore. One by one, the echoes made their choice. The analyst, Indigo, held back, a nod of defiant, cold light. I will not be shackled to a Konoha leash. I remain. Let the others play at being alive. The scholar, Crimson, flowed down its connection like molten wax, its presence entering Naruto's mind with a surge of dry, ancient knowledge, histories, genealogies, philosophical treatises on Fuinjutsu theory. It was vast and heavy. The sad one, Emerald, came gently, a wave of profound sorrow and a deep, nurturing knowledge of life force manipulation and healing seals. Her presence was like a tear on his soul. The quiet one, Gold, followed, bringing not words but a profound, technical understanding of spatial and dimensional seals, the mathematics of reality itself. It was a silent, brilliant library. 3 others joined, a fiery one, Orange, with knowledge of combat Fuinjutsu and barrier techniques, a steady one, Brown, of architecture and city planning, a watery one, Blue, of navigation and meteorology. 7 echoes. 7 new voices, 7 new sets of memories and traumas, settled into the strata of his consciousness. It was not a possession. It was an infusion. He gasped, stumbling to one knee as a tsunami of foreign experience hit him. He saw flashes, the glittering seaside spires of Uzushio, the sound of a language full of spiraling vowels, the terror of seeing unfamiliar sails on the horizon, the crushing betrayal of seeing Konoha's hawk messenger arrive too late, with condolences. The pain was psychic, a roaring in his skull. He felt a part of his own inner landscape, the mental representation of his mind, crack and reform making room. He felt older, burdened by decades that were not his own. A faint, silvery streak appeared in his blonde hair at the temple. The ritual completed. The central seal dimmed. The void was quieter now. Only the analyst's seal and 4 others remained, dark and silent, choosing oblivion over a compromised existence. Naruto breathed raggedly, pushing himself up. The world felt different. He could now feel the subtle Fuinjutsu woven into the very walls of Konoha, could sense the latent Uzumaki contributions to its sewer systems, its foundation barriers. He could also feel a deep, radiating wave of resentment from the direction of the Hokage Tower, not from people, but from the land itself, a ghost pain of complicity. The cost begins, whispered the sad one's voice in his mind, gentle but sorrowful. Your unity of self is the first payment. Welcome, Naruto thought, to all of them. The chorus of ancient, weary, curious, and grieving voices murmured back. He left the vault, the tree ceiling itself seamlessly behind him. The forest noises rushed back. He was Naruto Uzumaki, Hokage of Konoha. And now, he was also a walking memorial to a murdered clan. The first step was taken. The echoes were awake. And they were hungry for the world they had lost. As he ghosted back towards the village walls, the scholar's voice, crisp and clear, spoke up. First order of business, heir. The registry. The closest living descendant with a measurable concentration of our blood is not in some distant land. She tends a flower shop in the eastern quarter of Konoha. An orphan, registered as Ami. She suffers from strange fevers and an affinity for plant life she cannot explain. She believes she is just sickly. Naruto stopped in his tracks, his heart clenching. One of his own, here all along. Suffering in ignorance. The revival was not a future abstract concept. It began now, with a lonely girl and a bouquet of flowers. The path ahead was no longer just his. He was a conduit. And the past was flowing through him, demanding to be heard. Chapter 3: The Girl with Fever Blood. The eastern quarter of Konoha was a district of modest crafts and quiet commerce, far from the bustle of the mission desk or the polished halls of the clan compounds. The air smelled of baking bread, fresh lumber, and, in one particular corner, the rich, damp earth scent of flowers. Sunrise Blossoms was a small, tidy shop fronted by a cascading display of potted geraniums and hanging ivy. It was the kind of place that existed in the peaceful background of the village, unnoticed by shinobi on urgent business. Naruto stood across the street, disguised not by a transformation jutsu, but by simple civilian clothing, a brown jacket and plain trousers, and a slight, subconscious application of a perception-filtering genjutsu, a trick Shursui's eye had once made legendary and which he'd learned to approximate through sheer chakra control. He was a blur, a man you'd glance at and forget. The Hokage couldn't just walk in. For an hour he watched. He saw the ebb and flow of customers, an old woman buying lavender, a young man nervously selecting roses, a mother with a child pointing at bright sunflowers. And he saw her. Ami. She was perhaps 17, with hair the color of faded rust, pulled into a messy but practical braid. She was slender, almost frail-looking, but moved with a focused, gentle efficiency among her plants. Her smile for customers was warm but tired, with shadows under her large, green eyes. Every so often, she would pause, press a hand to her own forehead, or lean against the shelf, taking a slow, deep breath. The echoes in Naruto's mind stirred. The fever, murmured the sad one, her voice a bomb in his mental cacophony. A common manifestation in those with our life force affinity, when untrained and unacknowledged. The body's energy, seeking expression, turns inwards. It burns them from the inside. She is purer than you are, in a way, the scholar observed clinically. Your blood is a powerful cocktail, Uzumaki vitality, Namikaze's refinement, and the fox's constant chakra bath. Hers is a quieter, more concentrated strain, likely from a line that focused on Mokuton-adjacent sealing arts, symbiosis with flora. See how the jasmine perks up when she touches it? Naruto saw it. When Ami's fingers brushed a wilted leaf, the plant didn't just look healthier, it seemed to lean into her touch. A subtle, green-gold shimmer, invisible to anyone without the most sensitive chakra sight or an Uzumaki echo pointing it out, flickered at her fingertips. She is dying, the quiet one stated, its golden logic cold and irrefutable. Not quickly. But the fever will intensify. Her body will either consume itself by 40, or her chakra system will suffer a catastrophic failure, a backfire of unguided energy. This is the fate of many scattered descendants. Their heritage is a disease without a diagnosis. A cold knot tightened in Naruto's stomach. This wasn't about clans or politics. This was a girl, sick and alone, and her sickness was her birthright. His birthright. He waited until the shop was empty, the late afternoon lull settling in. He dropped the genjutsu as he crossed the street, becoming simply a man in plain clothes. The bell above the door chimed softly. Ami looked up from where she was trimming stems. Welcome! How can I help you today? Her smile was automatic, professional. Naruto met her eyes. He didn't smile back. He saw the faint, feverish sheen on her skin, the slight tremor in her hands she tried to hide. I'm not here for flowers, Ami. Her smile faltered. A flicker of wariness entered her green eyes. Do I know you, sir? No. But I know you. He kept his voice low, gentle. I know about the fevers. The ones the doctors can't explain. The way the medicines don't really help. The way plants respond to you. Her face went pale. She took a half step back, her hand tightening around her shears. It was a civilian's defensive gesture, utterly ineffective against a shinobi, but it spoke of a lifetime of hiding. I don't know what you're talking about. If you're not buying anything, please leave. I'm not a threat, Naruto said, holding up his empty hands. I have the same condition. Or I come from the same place it does. He let a tiny, controlled thread of his chakra unwind, not the overwhelming ocean of it, but the specific Uzumaki frequency he'd learned to isolate, a deep, resonant, spiraling warmth. Ami's eyes widened. The shears clattered to the floor. She gasped, a hand flying to her chest. For her, it wasn't just sensing chakra. It was like hearing a song she'd hummed in fragments her whole life, suddenly played in its entirety by a full orchestra. It was recognition, on a cellular level. Tears welled in her eyes, not of fear, but of overwhelming, inexplicable relief. What is that? She whispered, her voice trembling. It's who we are, Naruto said. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. And you carry the blood of the Uzumaki clan. The name meant nothing to her. Her brow furrowed in confusion. Yuzu what? Clan? I'm no one. I'm an orphan. My parents were merchants. They died when I was little. There's no clan. Show her the crest, the scholar advised. Naruto unbuttoned the cuff of his jacket, revealing the simple, spiraling tattoo he'd inked on his wrist that very morning, a copy of the Uzumaki symbol. This was their sign. Our sign. We were a people from a place called Uzushio, the village of the whirling tides. We were sealers, binders, masters of Fuin Jutsu. We were allies of Konoha. And we were destroyed, Ami. Erased. Our people were scattered, our history buried. You are one of the scattered pieces. She stared at the spiral, then at his face, her mind clearly reeling. The information was too vast, too monumental. It crashed against the simple reality of her small, painful life. Destroyed? But why? And why am I here? Why don't I know any of this? Because the world wanted to forget us, Naruto said, his voice hardening slightly. And because knowing is dangerous. Your fever, your affinity, they are relics of a power that was feared. You were safer in ignorance. Safer? A spark of anger cut through her confusion. Safer to feel like I'm burning alive every few weeks? Safer to be called sickly and fragile my whole life? She gestured around at the shop. This is all I can manage. I tried to join the academy as a kid, but my chakra control was unstable. They said I was a health risk. So I'm here. With the flowers. The anger faded into bitterness. And now you're telling me it's because of some clan I've never heard of? The resentment is natural. The fiery one, Orange, grumbled in his mind. We were denied our birthright. She was denied a normal life. A pox on all who did this. I'm telling you, Naruto said, stepping closer, his voice earnest. So you can have a choice. You can continue as you are. I can give you a seal, designed by our ancestors, that will suppress the fever symptoms. You can live a quiet, normal life. The choice is yours. Ami looked at him, suspicion and desperate hope warring in her eyes. Or you can learn. You can learn what that energy inside you really is. You can learn to control it, to use it. Not as a weapon, unless you choose to be a shinobi. But as a part of you. You can learn about the people you come from. You can not be alone with this anymore. The word alone hit her like a physical blow. Her shoulders slumped. The tears she'd been holding back spilled over. Not alone? She repeated, her voice small. Not alone, Naruto affirmed. There are others scattered. I'm going to find them. And I want to rebuild something. Not the old clan, not a weapon. A place of knowledge. Of healing. A place where people like us don't have to be sick or afraid. He was articulating the vision for the first time, and it felt true. But it starts with you. If you want it to. He extended his hand palm up. Not in command. In offering. Ami looked at his hand, then at the spiral on his wrist, then at her own hands, the hands that made flowers bloom and her own blood boil. For her entire life, her body had been a mystery and a prison. Here was a key. A terrifying, world-shattering key. She took a deep, shuddering breath. The air in the shop seemed to grow still, the scent of the flowers intensifying. A single, stubborn vine of ivy near the window stretched towards her, almost imperceptibly. My fever, it's coming on now, she admitted, her voice thin. It's worse than usual. She is reaching a tipping point, the sad one said urgently. The energy is cresting. Without guidance, it could cause a feedback loop. Naruto nodded. Will you let me help you? Right now? Fear flashed in her eyes, but beneath it was a fierce, stubborn will he recognized instantly. It was the same will that had kept a lonely boy going. She gave a sharp, tight nod. Close the shop. We can't do this here. Minutes later, in the small, sparsely furnished apartment above the flower shop, Ami sat on the floor, shivering despite the heat radiating from her skin. Naruto knelt before her. The echoes in his mind conferred, their knowledge flowing into him. This wasn't a standard medical ninjutsu. This was Uzumaki life force manipulation. This will be a temporary guiding seal, he explained, his fingers already glowing with a complex, green-gold chakra pattern. It won't suppress your energy. It will give it a path, a channel. Like redirecting a flooding river into an irrigation system. It will hurt at first. Then it will feel quiet. Just do it, Ami gritted out, her eyes squeezed shut. Naruto placed his fingers on her forehead. The moment his chakra met hers, he felt it, a raw, untamed, potent force, thrashing like a wild thing caught in a thicket. It was beautiful and terrifying. He began to weave. The seal was not inscribed on skin, but into the fabric of her chakra network itself. It was a masterpiece of subtlety, a spiraling lattice that anchored at her core and spread delicate filaments to her tenketsu points. He poured his own immense reserves into the work, stabilizing her raging energy, coaxing it into the new pathways. He felt the cost immediately, a deep, spiritual drain, as if he were sharing his own vitality to bank her fires. Another silvery strand appeared in his hair. Ami gasped, her back arching. The heat in the room spiked, then a wave of green-gold light pulsed from her, washing over the room. The single potted plant on her windowsill erupted in growth, blooming with vibrant, impossible flowers in seconds. Then the light receded, drawing back into her. She slumped forward, breathing heavily. The feverish sheen was gone. Her skin was cool. She opened her eyes, and they were clearer, sharper than before. She looked at her hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. It's quiet, she whispered, awe in her voice. It's still there. I can feel it. But it's not burning. It's just humming. She looked up at Naruto, seeing the new fatigue in his eyes, the silver in his hair. You took some of it, didn't you? To help me. It's the price of the art, he said simply, not denying it. Uzumaki seals that deal with life force are about balance. To give order, I had to share stability. Tears filled her eyes again, but these were different. Thank you? The words were profound. Then, a new expression crossed her face, determination. Tell me everything. About Uzushio. About the clan. About what you're planning. I want in. I don't want to be just Ami the flower girl anymore. I want to be Ami Uzumaki. The name, spoken with such tentative pride, echoed in the small room. It was the first stone laid in a new foundation. The first of the found, the scholar said, satisfaction in its ancient voice. She has the will. The fiery one acknowledged, a note of approval there. The healing begins. The sad one sighed, a touch of hope coloring her sorrow. Naruto smiled, a real, weary smile. Then we have a lot to talk about, Ami Uzumaki. And you have a lot to learn. Starting with how not to make every plant in Konoha go crazy when you get excited. A small, genuine laugh escaped her, the sound bright and unburdened. It was the sound of a prison door opening. But as Naruto began to speak, weaving tales of a lost city by the sea, a part of him remained coldly aware. The first thread had been pulled. The tapestry of the forgotten was beginning to unravel. And somewhere, in the shadows of the village that had let Uzushio fall, eyes that preferred the past buried would soon notice a flicker of crimson in the dark. Chapter 4: The Burden of the Living. Ami's small apartment became a sanctuary and a classroom. For the next week, Naruto visited her in the deep hours of the night, a phantom Hokage moving unseen. During the day, he performed his duties with a mask of normalcy, but the weight of the seven echoes was a constant, murmuring presence. He'd find himself correcting a diplomatic letter with phrasing that was centuries out of date, or analyzing a village security diagram and instinctively seeing 3 more efficient seal-based barriers, suggestions he had to consciously filter out. Ami was a voracious student. The guiding seal had not only stabilized her, it had unlocked a latent cognitive sharpness. She absorbed the history of Uzushio like parched earth drinking rain. She wept over the keeper's testimony, her anger a quiet, cold flame that mirrored the analyst's still burning ember in Naruto's mind. She pored over the basic Fuinjutsu theory the scholar provided, her affinity for life force making the abstract concepts of energy channels and symbolic intent feel instinctual. So our seals aren't just about locking things away, she said one night, tracing a simple stabilizing formula on a scrap of paper. The lines glowed faintly under her fingertip. They're about creating relationships, binding this energy to that purpose. Like gardening on a cosmic scale. An apt, if simplistic, analogy, the scholar approved. She has the intuition. It's why the plants respond to you, Naruto added, showing her a basic elemental harmony seal used by Uzushio's agriculturalists. Your chakra naturally seeks to create symbiotic bonds. Untrained, it tried to bond with everything inside you, causing the fever. Trained, you could accelerate growth, heal blight, communicate with flora. Her eyes shone with a passion he'd never seen in her before. This was her purpose, unearthed from the rubble of a forgotten genocide. But the revival could not be built on one flower girl's awakening. The registry from the scroll was their map. The next closest, measurable concentration, was not in Konoha, but in the land of rivers, a neutral territory perpetually crisscrossed by trade and intrigue. A man, approximately 40, registered as a minor merchant and part-time carpenter named Tetsu. The notes were sparse. Exhibits unusual physical resilience. Survived injuries deemed fatal. Suspected passive, body-focused bloodline limit. He's a survivor in the most literal sense, Naruto mused, studying the entry in his mind's eye. Probably doesn't even know why he's so tough. The iron blood constitution. The steady one, Brown, spoke up, its voice like grinding stones. A minor but valuable Uzumaki variant. Not true regeneration, but a preternatural durability of bones, sinew, and flesh. Useful for builders and frontline sealers. He would have been a wallrite in Uzushio. We have to contact him, Ami said, her expression determined. He needs to know. It's not that simple. Naruto sighed, the Hokage part of him asserting itself. The land of rivers is outside Konoha's direct protection. If I, the Hokage, suddenly travel there to seek out a specific civilian, it will raise immediate flags in every intelligence agency on the continent. They'll want to know why Tetsu is important. And if they connect him to me, to the Uzumaki name, they will eliminate him. The analyst's cold voice cut in from its distant vault, choosing to comment despite its refusal to join them. Or kidnap him. Dissect him. The moment you shine a light on a surviving asset, you make it a target. This is the logic that led to our erasure. You are proving my point. The truth of it settled heavily in the room. Naruto couldn't go himself. Sending a Konoha ninja team was equally conspicuous. I could go, Ami said suddenly. Naruto stared at her. No. Absolutely not. You've had control of your chakra for a week. You're not a shinobi. I'm a civilian with a flower shop, she countered, her newfound will firm. I could go on a buying trip for rare seeds or botanicals. It's plausible. I speak the trade language. And who would suspect me? I'm no one. It is a logical solution, the quiet one, Gold, observed. Low profile. Deniable. The risk to the primary asset, you, Hokage, is minimized. The risk to her is maximized. Naruto shot back, both aloud and mentally. The world isn't safe. Bandits, rogue ninja, opportunistic slavers. I've lived in that world my whole life, Lord Hokage, Ami said softly, a new formality in her tone. Just in a smaller corner of it. You gave me this knowledge, this family. Let me do something for it. Let me find our cousin. She called him Lord Hokage. It was a deliberate reminder of the distance his position created, of the fact that he could not be the hands and feet of this resurrection. He had to lead it. And that meant trusting others to take risks. He argued with her for an hour, listing dangers, his own fears for her safety a tight knot in his chest. The echoes were divided. The scholar and the quiet one saw the tactical sense, the sad one and the fiery one feared for her, the steady one was neutral. Finally, Naruto slumped in his chair, defeated not by her arguments, but by the inevitable logic of the path he'd chosen. He couldn't protect every Uzumaki by himself. That was the old, failed model, the isolated citadel. You will not go alone, he said, his voice gruff. You'll have an escort. Not a Konoha ninja. A companion. He placed a hand on his own abdomen. Kurama, I need a favor. TCH. You want a babysitter for the seedling? The fox grumbled. A guardian. One that can protect her without drawing attention, and can get a message to me instantly if things go wrong. There was a long, contemplative silence in his mindscape. My chakra is too distinctive. Even a sliver. Not your chakra. Your knowledge. Your essence, but contained. The echo stirred, intrigued. The quiet one pulsed. A sentient containment seal. A fragment of consciousness housed in an inert medium. A communication and defense proxy. Theoretically possible. But the creation would be complex. And it would require a voluntary partition from the Nine Tails. It would be a piece of him, separate. Kurama's growl was a tremor in Naruto's soul. I am not in the habit of splitting myself. It wouldn't be a split, Naruto pleaded, feeling the strange, new dynamic. He was not just a Jinchuriki asking his tenant, but a clan leader asking a, what? An ally? A fellow survivor? It would be a dedicated line. A clone of intent, not of power. To protect one of the last of the sage's other descendants. The appeal to their shared, ancient lineage was calculated. Kurama was silent for a long time. The vessel would need to be extremely robust. Uzumaki grade. Naruto looked at Ami. We're going to make you something. A tool and a protector. You'll help me make it. For the next 3 nights, in a secret training ground far from prying eyes, they worked. Naruto provided the chakra, the vast, disciplined oceans of it. Ami, under the precise guidance of the scholar and the quiet one, provided the finesse of her life force affinity. The vessel was a simple, smooth river stone Ami had chosen for its feel. The seal they wove into its atomic structure was a masterpiece of miniaturization and intent, a threefold matrix for chakra storage, to be filled by Naruto, a sentience link to Kurama's core consciousness, and a dormant defensive protocol that would activate in the presence of lethal hostile intent. The final step was the most delicate. Kurama, with a grumble that shook Naruto's bones, exhaled a wisp of glowing red chakra, not just energy, but imprinted with his predatory awareness, his cunning, and a sliver of his will to protect. It was not a Bija bomb, it was a Bija's attention. The wisp flowed into the stone. The seal flared, then settled. The stone was now a deep, translucent crimson, with a faint, slow pulse like a heartbeat. Hold it, Naruto said, handing it to Ami. She took it. It was warm. A sense of immense, grumpy, watchful presence washed over her, not hostile, but profoundly alien. I can feel him. Watching. Don't get used to it, girl. Kurama's voice echoed directly in her mind, making her jump. This is a security detail, not a friendship. You get into trouble, the rock glows. I tell the idiot here. Try to use it for parlor tricks, and I'll turn it into a paperweight. Ami grinned, a fearless, bright expression. Thank you, Lord Kurama. TCH. Just Kurama. Naruto then taught her a basic, non-aggressive taijutsu stance, a few simple evasion maneuvers, and how to channel a trickle of her chakra into a weak but effective barrier seal he inscribed on a bracelet. It was not enough to make her a kunoichi, but enough, hopefully, to keep her alive long enough for the stone to activate or for her to run. The day of her departure dawned. Naruto stood at the village gates, disguised again, watching as Ami, dressed in sensible traveling clothes with a pack of sample books and botanical guides, checked out with the gate guards. Her story was airtight. Her nervousness was that of any young civilian woman embarking on her first major trade trip. She glanced at him once, gave a small, confident nod, and passed through the gates. He watched her until she was a speck on the road. The worry was a physical ache. He had sent a lamb, armed with only a strange stone and a head full of dangerous history, into a world that had devoured her ancestors. She has the whirlpool's will. The sad one reminded him gently. It is stronger than you think. He returned to the Hokage Tower, to a day crammed with budget meetings and infrastructure reviews. His mind was split, a part of it perpetually tuned to the distant, tenuous connection through the stone, feeling the steady, calm pulse of Ami's progress and Kurama's watchful annoyance. It was during a mercifully dull conference on sewer expansion that the first consequence of his action struck, not from without, but from within Konoha's own power structure. An aide slipped into the room and whispered to Shikamaru, who frowned and leaned over to Naruto. The Council of Clan Elders has called an emergency session for this evening. They're being insistent. Naruto's blood ran cold. The Council, a vestigial but influential body of retired shinobi and clan representatives, had no formal governing power, but their disapproval could strangle policy and bureaucracy. On what grounds? Shikamaru's eyes were sharp. They cited concerns over historical accountability and unilateral Hokage action. Hamura Midokado and Koharu Yutane are leading the charge. The two ancient advisors, survivors from Hiruzen Sarutobi's era, were keepers of Konoha's darkest secrets. They had been quiet since Naruto took office, biding their time. Naruto knew, with a sinking certainty. They had found out. Not everything, but enough. A Hokage spending unusual amounts of time in the deep archives. Unexplained chakra signatures in the forest of death. Perhaps even a report of a silver-haired stranger visiting a certain flower shop. The old spiders in their web had felt a tremor. The meeting dragged on, but Naruto was no longer present. He was planning. The political battlefield had just been revealed. The revival of the Uzumaki would not be fought only in forgotten ruins or on distant roads. It would be fought in council chambers, with words as sharp as kunai, and with the guilty, fading memories of old men and women who had been content to let the whirlpool remain a footnote. As he left the conference room, Shikamaru fell into step beside him. Want to tell me what's really going on, Naruto? He asked, his voice low. This historical accountability, it smells of something old. And you've been distracted. There's silver in your hair. Naruto stopped, meeting his friend's concerned gaze. He trusted Shikamaru with his life. But this secret was a poison. Knowing it would force Shikamaru to choose between his friend and his duty to the village's stability, to the official history. Not yet, Shika, Naruto said, his voice thick with an apology. I can't. Not until I understand what I'm fighting. Shikamaru studied him for a long moment, then sighed, running a hand through his hair. A real drag. Whatever it is, it's changing you. Just remember who you are. You're Naruto Uzumaki. But you're also the Hokage. Don't let one identity destroy the other. It was the very conflict the echoes had warned him about. As he walked towards the council chamber that evening, the ghosts of Uzushio murmuring strategies and warnings in his mind, he felt the division within himself widen. He was a bridge between the living and the dead, between Konoha and Uzushio. And tonight, he would have to stand on that bridge while forces from both sides tried to burn it down. The chamber doors loomed before him, heavy with history. Behind them sat the guardians of Konoha's convenient past. Naruto took a deep breath, straightened his Hokage robe, and pushed them open. The revival had just entered its most dangerous arena, the present. Chapter 5, The Keepers of the Lie. The council chamber was a place of dusty grandeur, designed to intimidate. High windows were shrouded in dark velvet, and the long, polished table reflected the stern faces of its occupants like a dark mirror. It was a room that remembered whispers of coup and condemnation. At its head, Naruto took his seat, the Hokage's hat resting on the table before him like a silent argument. The council was not full, only the most senior members had been summoned. At the table's far end sat Hamura Midokado and Koharu Yutane, their faces a landscape of wrinkles and faded scars, their eyes sharp as broken glass behind small spectacles. They were relics, personal students of the second Hokage, advisors to the third. They had helped steer Konoha through its bloodiest eras. Their presence was a statement in itself. Flanking them were representatives from the major clans, an elderly Yamanaka, a stern Aburame matriarch, and a Hyuga elder Naruto didn't recognize, his Byakugan veins prominent even in rest. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Hamura spoke first, his voice a dry rustle of parchment. Lord Seventh, we thank you for humoring this gathering on short notice. We have concerns that cannot wait for the formal quarterly review. Concerns regarding my conduct? Naruto asked, his tone carefully neutral, the voice of the Hokage. Koharu's lips thinned. Regarding certain activities unbecoming of the office's discretion. There are reports. Unexplained chakra expenditures in secured historical sectors. Unauthorized, solitary nocturnal excursions. And a curious focus on a civilian flower merchant who has recently departed the village on vague business. Her gaze was unwavering. These actions, taken individually, might be curiosities. Together they form a pattern that suggests a personal project of significant, and potentially destabilizing, magnitude. They know of Ami's departure. The scholar noted coldly. Their surveillance is more pervasive than anticipated. Deny nothing. Admit nothing, the fiery one advised. They have no proof, only suspicion. My activities as Hokage are myriad, Naruto replied, folding his hands on the table. Some require personal attention. The flower merchant Ami is on a legitimate trade mission to source medicinal flora for the hospital's apothecary, a project I initiated to reduce our dependence on foreign imports. As for historical research, is it not the Hokage's duty to understand the foundation upon which he builds? There is history, Lord Seventh, and then there is digging, Amira said, the word loaded with meaning. The foundations of a village are not always pleasant to behold. Some stones are best left unturned, lest the entire structure shift. The Hyuga elder spoke, his voice haughty. This council exists to ensure stability. The Hokage's power, while supreme, is not without check. Engaging in clandestine research, particularly into sensitive areas of our past, risks awakening old grievances. Grievances between clans. Between villages. He means the Uzumaki. The sad one whispered, sorrow laced with anger. They speak in code, but they know what you seek. What specific grievances do you refer to, Elder? Naruto asked, locking eyes with the Hyuga. If there are wounds in Konoha's past, is it not better to heal them with light, rather than let them fester in the dark? Koharu leaned forward. Some wounds, Naruto, are mortal, and the healing attempt kills the patient. The destruction of Uzushio is one such wound. A tragedy of the Warring States period, complicated by alliances and betrayals that no living person fully understands. To reopen it now, to assign blame, to seek, what? Restitution? That way lies only fresh conflict. There it was, laid bare on the council table. Not an accusation, but a warning wrapped in a confession. We know what you're doing. Stop. Naruto felt the echoes within him roil. The scholar's dry knowledge curdled into fury. The fiery one's heat spiked. He kept his face a placid mask, but his chakra, for an instant, spiked, a brief, oppressive wave that made the candles gutter and the elders stiffen. He reined it in immediately, but the message was sent. He was not a boy to be chided. The Uzumaki were our allies, Naruto said, his voice dangerously quiet. My mother's clan. Their symbols are on the backs of our flak jackets. Their fuinjutsu is in our walls. Yet their history is a footnote. Their end, a vague tragedy. You speak of stability. What is stable about a foundation built on a buried genocide? The word genocide hung in the air like smoke. The Aburame matriarch shifted uncomfortably. The Yamanaka elder looked pale. Hamura's aged hand tightened on his cane. Strong words, Hokage. Words that assign a malice that did not exist. The fall of Uzushio was a complex geopolitical event. Konoha was besieged on 3 fronts. Our forces were stretched. The reinforcement fleet was destroyed by a storm. Lies! The scholar's voice screamed in Naruto's mind, a raw, psychic wound. The fleet was sabotaged in port. By Earth country agents with Konoha intelligence looking the other way. The storm was a cover story. Naruto absorbed the surge of ancestral rage, let it fuel his calm. Is that the story you tell yourselves? The convenient storm? He stood up, not towering, but making his presence the center of the room. I have read the last keeper's testimony. Written as the blades fell. He names inaction. He names complicity. Not of Konoha as a whole, perhaps, but of its leaders at the time. Leaders who decided the Uzumaki's mastery of sealing was becoming a liability, that a rival power center was a threat, even if it was an ally. Koharu's face was stone. You speak of things you cannot possibly verify. The ravings of a dying man in a doomed city. History is written by the survivors, Lord Seventh. We are the survivors. The story we built has given us 70 years of relative peace. Will you tear it down for the ghosts of a clan that is dust? They are not dust to me, Naruto said, his voice cracking with emotion he could no longer suppress. He pointed to the silver streaking his hair. They are in my blood. They are in my mind. And they are in the sick, scattered descendants who don't know why they suffer. I have met one. A girl whose blood burned her because no one was left to teach her what it was. That is the stability you preserved. A stability of ignorance and suffering. The council was silent, shocked by his outburst, by the admission of contact with the survivor. The Hyuga elder recovered first. And what is your aim? To gather these strays? To declare a new Uzumaki clan within Konoha? The other clans will not accept a sudden, Hokage-backed power of unknown potential and clear historical grievance. It will shatter the delicate balance of the village. My aim, Naruto said, forcing his voice back to steadiness, is to give them their history. To give them the choice to claim their name, or not. To provide them with the knowledge to control their own gifts, so they don't die in obscurity. I do not seek a compound, or a seat on this council, or political power. I seek a school. An archive. A place of healing. Hamura scoffed, a dry, brittle sound. You are naive. You cannot light a beacon in the dark and claim you are only illuminating a book. Every village on the continent will see that light. Iwagakure, who led the sacking of Yuzushio, will see a threat reborn. Kumogakure, who stole sealing scrolls from the ruins, will see a challenge to their possession. Even our allies in Suna and Kiri will grow wary. You will not be creating a school. You will be painting targets on every person you gather. He is not wrong. The analyst's voice slithered from its distant vault, a grim vindication. I told you. The world does not want us remembered. Naruto met Hamura's gaze. So the solution is to continue the erasure? To let the last embers of the Uzumaki flicker out in lonely pain, because acknowledging them is inconvenient? Because it forces us to look at an ugly page in our own ledger? He looked at each elder in turn. Is that the will of fire? To let our allies burn, and then use their ashes to fertilize our gardens while pretending we never knew their names? The question was a gauntlet thrown. It challenged the core mythology of the village. Kohara stood, her small frame rigid with authority. The will of fire is the survival and prosperity of Konoha. Sometimes, that survival requires difficult choices. Choices that stain the hands of those who make them, so that the next generation's hands may be clean. Your generation's hands were clean, Naruto, because ours were not. Do not dirty them now by digging in graves. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Naruto felt a cold fury settle in his bones. This was the rot Kurama had warned him of. The selective memory. The lie told so often it had become truth, even to those who helped weave it. I will not let fear dictate justice, Naruto stated, his final word on the matter. The Uzumaki will be acknowledged. I will proceed with discretion, but I will proceed. This is not a request for the council's permission. It is a notification of the Hokage's intent. The declaration echoed in the stunned silence. He had just drawn a line, separating the office of Hokage from the wishes of its traditional power brokers. The Hyuga elder stood, his Byakugan activating with a faint surge, the veins bulging. Then you do so at your own peril, and at the peril of this village. The Hyuga clan will not support any action that destabilizes the village's internal harmony. We will be watching. One by one, the others stood, a silent, grim-faced exodus of disapproval. Only Hamura and Kohara remained seated, staring at him with a mixture of pity and profound disappointment. You are choosing ghosts over the living, Naruto, Kohara said softly, the use of his name a deliberate intimacy that felt like a dagger. A leader cannot afford such sentiment. We tried to warn you. For the sake of the village your father died to protect, we hope you see reason before it is too late. They left, leaving him alone in the cavernous, dark room. The weight of their opposition was immense. They controlled budgets, influenced public opinion, held the loyalty of many older shinobi. They could obstruct him at every turn. The first political battle is lost, the steady one observed, its voice pragmatic. You have declared your intent to a hostile audience. They will now move from observation to obstruction. They called us ghosts, the fiery one seethed. They tend the garden grown from our bones. Naruto slumped back into his chair, the adrenaline fading, leaving exhaustion and doubt in its wake. Had he been too blunt? Had he just made enemies of the very people who could help him protect the survivors? You spoke the truth, the sad one said, her voice a comforting whisper. That is never the wrong thing. But truth has consequences. You have now made the silent war loud. He looked at his reflection in the dark table. The silver in his hair seemed more pronounced. The faces of the echoes flickered in his eyes, ancient, angry, sorrowful. He was no longer just Naruto. He was a vessel for a forgotten people's rage and hope. And the living world was pushing back. He thought of Ami, somewhere on the road to the land of rivers, carrying her crimson stone. He had to succeed. Not for vengeance, not for power, but because to fail now would mean surrendering to the very logic of erasure that had doomed his clan. It would mean agreeing with Hamura and Kohara that some people were worth sacrificing for a peaceful lie. He stood, donning the Hokage's hat. The weight of it was different now. It was not just the weight of the village, but the weight of a choice, Konoha's convenient past, or the Uzumaki's terrible truth. He knew which he would carry. But as he walked back to his office through the silent, sleeping village, he couldn't shake the chilling fear that in choosing the ghosts, he might end up sacrificing the very living he had sworn to protect. The path of remembrance was proving to be a narrow ledge over a familiar abyss, the cost of peace, paid in blood and silence. This time, he was determined the currency would be different. Chapter 6: The Unbreakable. The road to the land of rivers was a ribbon of dust and commerce. Ami walked with a purpose that was new to her. Before, her world had been the four walls of her shop and the crushing, internal heat of her unknown sickness. Now, the world was vast, filled with the hum of hidden energies and the weight of a history she was only beginning to grasp. The crimson stone, nestled in a pouch against her chest, was a constant, warm presence, a grumpy guardian and a tether to the man who had given her a name beyond. The sickly flower girl. She followed the merchant routes, her cover story holding. She took notes on unfamiliar flora, chatted with traveling peddlers about soil quality, and slept in crowded, noisy inns where no one looked twice at a solitary young woman. At night, she practiced. She would channel a trickle of her chakra, now a cool, directed stream instead of a wildfire, into the basic seals Naruto had taught her. A small barrier to mute sound around her bedroll. A gentle pulse of growth to revive a wilting roadside flower. Each success was a quiet thrill, a reclaiming of a self she never knew she had lost. On the 5th day, she crossed the border into the land of rivers. The terrain grew lusher, the air thicker with the scent of water and blooming things. Her destination was a small market town called Ryuji, built around a series of canals. According to the registry, Tetsu the carpenter had a workshop on the outskirts. Ryuji was a town of practical charm. Water wheels turned, sawmills buzzed, and the clang of metal on wood filled the air. Ami found Tetsu's workshop easily, a large, open-sided barn filled with the rich smell of sawdust and pine resin. A man was at the back, planing a long beam of oak. He was in his 40s, built like the timber he worked with, broad, solid, and seemingly rooted to the earth. His arms were corded with muscle, and his hands, even from a distance, showed old, faded scars that spoke of accidents that should have been worse. This was him. Her cousin, in blood if not in knowledge. Ami's heart hammered. What was her approach? Hello, I'm your long-lost clan member, here to tell you you're a descendant of a murdered people of seal masters. No. She had to be cautious, as Naruto had warned. She fell back on her cover. Excuse me? She called out, her voice barely audible over the rasp of the plane. The man, Tetsu, looked up. His face was square and weathered, his eyes a calm, intelligent brown. He didn't smile, but his expression was not unfriendly. Can I help you, miss? I'm looking for a specific kind of cedar, Ami said, improvising. For a botanical preservation project. The grain needs to be very tight, very resilient. I was told you might have some, or know where to get it. Tetsu set his plane down and wiped his hands on his apron. Cedar, eh? For preservation? That's a specific ask. Most just want it for chests or beams. Come on in, have a look at what I've got seasoning. He gestured to stacks of timber under a lean-to. As she followed him, Ami let her newly honed senses stretch out. She felt it immediately, a deep, dense, almost metallic hum from his body. Not chakra in the active, shinobi sense, but a profound, passive vitality. It was like sensing the heartwood of an ancient tree. The scholar's description of the iron blood constitution made perfect sense. You're not from around here, Tetsu observed as he showed her the wood. Konoha, Ami said. I run a flower shop. Long way to come for wood. Must be an important project. His gaze was assessing, not suspicious, but deeply perceptive. It's a legacy project, Ami said, the truth finding its way out in coded form. About preserving something that's been lost. Tetsu nodded slowly, running a calloused hand over a smooth cedar plank. Lost things? I know something about that. He paused, then looked directly at her. You've got a look about you. A focused look. Not just a shopkeeper. And you carry yourself like you're waiting for a storm. His bluntness startled her. This was no simple craftsman. This was a man who had survived, who observed. He is aware, on some level. The scholar's voice chimed in her mind, channeled through her link to Naruto and the echoes. His resilience is not just physical. It is a will to endure. Tell him. Carefully. The stone against her chest pulsed once, warm. Kurama's version of a nudge. Ami took a deep breath. She stepped away from the pretense. Though it isn't why I'm really here, Tetsu-san. I'm here because of what you are. What we are. His calm expression didn't change, but his eyes grew still, like deep pools. And what are we, girl from Konoha? We're what's left of the Uzumaki clan. There was no dramatic reaction. No gasp, no denial. Tetsu simply stared at her for a long, silent moment. The sounds of the sawmill next door seemed to fade away. Uzumaki, he repeated, the word foreign on his tongue. I've heard that name. A whisper from old shinobi passing through, drunk on sake. A cursed name. A dead name. It's not dead, Ami said, her voice gaining strength. It lives in us. In you. Your strength, the injuries you've survived that should have killed you. That's your inheritance. It's called the Iron Blood Constitution. My inheritance was a fever that burned me from the inside. A man in Konoha, our cousin, he found me. He helped me. He told me the truth. What truth? Tetsu's voice was low, dangerous. That Yazushio, our homeland, wasn't just destroyed in a war. It was betrayed. Erased. Because the world feared our power to seal, to bind, to shape reality itself. Our allies looked away. Our knowledge was stolen. Our people were hunted. We are the children of that silence. Tetsu turned away, looking out at his yard. He lifted his shirt slightly, revealing a thick, ropey scar that ran from his ribs to his hip. Bandits 7 years ago. Sword should have gutted me. It felt like a bad punch. Healed crooked, but it healed fast. He showed her his left hand, 2 fingers bent at unnatural angles, clearly broken and reset without care. Fell from a roof 2 stories up. Landed on this hand. Bones were powder, the doctor said. I was carving again in a month. He dropped his shirt and faced her, his expression now etched with a deep, weary anger. You're telling me this curse of durability is a mark? A brand from a clan that was murdered for what they could do? It's not a curse, Ami insisted, stepping forward. It's a gift. One you've had to use in the dark, with no understanding. Our cousin, Naruto, he's the Hokage of Konoha. He wants to rebuild our clan not as a weapon, but as a people of memory. To give us our history, our knowledge, so we're not just accidents of tough blood. The Hokage? A flicker of something, cynicism perhaps, crossed Tetsu's face. Konoha's leader is in Uzumaki, and he wants to help us now. Where was Konoha when our city burned? It was the same bitter question the echoes carried. Ami had no good answer. He wasn't alive then. He carries the guilt, and the will to make it right. He's paying a price for it. I've seen it. He's gathering the scattered ones, giving us a choice. To learn, to connect, or to walk away with the truth and a seal to live in peace. Tetsu was silent, absorbing it all. The practical mind of a carpenter assessed the story like a joint, checking for weakness. And if I say I want this knowledge? What then? Do I go to Konoha? Become a shinobi? I'm a carpenter. I build things that last. I'm no fighter. You don't have to be, Ami said. Naruto says our clan was more than warriors. It was builders, healers, scholars. Your constitution, it would have made you a master of structural seals, someone who could fortify a city's walls or a bridge's foundations against any force. You could build things that truly, literally, cannot be broken. For the first time, she saw a spark in Tetsu's eyes that wasn't anger or weariness. It was interest. The spark of a craftsman presented with a new, profound material. But before he could answer, the stone on Ami's chest pulsed, a sudden, sharp, warning heat. Girl. Kurama's voice growled directly in her mind, bypassing the scholarly echoes. You have shadows. 3 of them. Chakra signatures suppressed. They've been watching the workshop for the last 10 minutes. They're moving in now. Not bandits. Trained. Ami's blood ran cold. She met Tetsu's eyes, her own wide with alarm. We're being watched. By shinobi. Tetsu's demeanor changed instantly. The solid carpenter vanished, replaced by a man of grim, focused readiness. He didn't question her. He simply moved. In one fluid motion, he grabbed a heavy mallet from his bench and nudged her behind a stack of timber. Get down! Stay out of sight! The workshop's main entrance darkened. 3 figures stood silhouetted against the afternoon light. They wore no headbands, their attire a mix of practical leather and gray cloth, their faces covered by simple cloth masks. Their posture screamed professional menace. Tetsu the carpenter, the lead one said, his voice a bored monotone. You're wanted for questioning. Come quietly. The girl too. Questioning by who? Tetsu asked, his voice flat, the mallet held loosely at his side. By parties interested in hereditary anomalies. Your unusual hardiness has attracted attention. A valuable trait. Our employer wishes to study it. The man's eyes flicked to where Ami was hiding. The girl's chakra signature is also of interest. New but reminiscent. You will both come. Tetsu's answer was to shift his stance, planting his feet squarely on the earth. I don't think I will. The lead ninja sighed. A shame. He made a quick hand sign. The ninja on his right vanished in a swirl of leaves, reappearing behind Tetsu in a silent, knife-handed strike aimed at his spine. The blow connected with a dull thud. The ninja's eyes widened in shock. It felt like hitting solid oak. Tetsu grunted, more in annoyance than pain, and swung the mallet backward in a short, brutal arc. It connected with the ninja's ribs. There was a sickening crack, and the man was thrown across the workshop, crashing into a tool rack. The other 2 attacked instantly. Kunai flashed, aimed at joints, eyes, throat. Tetsu moved with a surprising, economical speed, blocking with his forearms, letting the blades scrape against skin that seemed more like treated leather than flesh. They drew blood, but shallow cuts that seemed to clot almost as they were made. He was a fortress, weathering the storm. But he was not a fighter. He was defensive, durable, but he lacked the skill to end the confrontation. The lead ninja, seeing this, signaled his partner. They disengaged, leaping back. Iron blood confirmed, the leader said, a note of clinical satisfaction in his voice. Suppression protocol. The second ninja unsealed a short, weighted chain from a scroll. They began to circle, not aiming to kill, but to entangle and subdue. Tetsu was strong, but against weapons and tactics designed for capture, his durability would only prolong the inevitable. Ami, crouching behind the timber, felt panic rise. She was no warrior. But she couldn't just watch. The stone was burning hot against her skin. Naruto was too far away. Kurama was a watcher, not a fighter in this form. The bracelet. The fiery one's voice snapped in her mind, forceful and clear. The barrier seal. Activate it. Not around you. Around him. As a shield. It was a desperate idea. The seal was designed for personal, static defense. To project it onto another, moving target. She focused, pouring her chakra into the bracelet Naruto had given her. She didn't visualize a dome around herself. She visualized a shell, a second skin of glowing energy, wrapping around Tetsu's broad back as he braced for the chain strike. A translucent, green-gold film of light flickered into existence over Tetsu's torso and shoulders just as the chain whipped around him. The link sparked against the barrier, tangling in the energy instead of his flesh. Tetsu roared in surprise and renewed effort, grabbing the chain and pulling the off-balance ninja toward him. The lead ninja's eyes narrowed at Ami. A sealer? Even more valuable. He flicked a volley of shuriken at her. She yelped, throwing up her arms. The barrier, stretched thin by her projection onto Tetsu, couldn't cover her. But Tetsu saw it. With a heave, he threw the chain ninja into the path of the shuriken, then lunged, placing his own body between Ami and the leader. 2 shuriken thudded into his back, sinking in only a finger's breadth before being stopped by his dense muscle. The lead ninja was upon them, a hand crackling with right-on chakra aimed at Tetsu's chest, a stunning attack to overload the nervous system. The crimson stone in Ami's pouch exploded with light. A searing, red-hot tendril of pure, bestial chakra lashed out, not as an attack, but as a concussive wave of sheer, predatory presence. It didn't burn, it terrified. The wave hit the lead ninja head-on. His right-on sputtered out. His eyes went wide with primal, soul-deep fear, the fear of prey before the ultimate predator. He stumbled back, tripping over his own feet. Enough. Kurama's voice boomed in the confined space, not through the stone, but seemingly from the air itself. The prey is not for you. Leave. Or be consumed. The aura of the Nine Tails, even this faint, distant echo, was too much for mercenary Shinosi. The lead ninja, his will shattered, scrambled backward, grabbed his dazed companion, and in a puff of smoke, they were gone, abandoning their broken comrade. Silence descended, broken only by Tetsu's heavy breathing. He turned, looking at Ami with a new, profound respect, and at the fading crimson light seeping from her pouch. What? He panted, pulling the shallowly embedded shuriken from his back with a grimace. In the hells was that? Ami sagged against the timber, her chakra nearly spent. That was our family. She managed a weak smile. A bit grumpy, but protective. Tetsu looked at the unconscious ninja, at his workshop now a battlefield, then back at Ami. The spark of interest in his eyes had become a steady flame. The abstract history, the distant clan, had just become violently, immediately real. They had been hunted. And they had fought back, together. He walked over, offering a hand to pull her up. His grip was like iron but gentle. All right, Ami Uzumaki, he said, the name feeling more natural now. Tell me more about this school. And about how I can learn to build something that can do that. He nodded toward the spot where the fox's aura had flared. The first member of the scattered clan had been found, and tested. And he had not broken. He had endured. The unbreakable had joined the cause. But the attack was a dire warning. The shadows of the world were already stirring, drawn by the faint, returning pulse of the whirlpool's blood. Chapter 7. The Cost in Flesh and Memory. The journey back from the land of rivers was a tense, shadowed affair. Tetsu, with the pragmatic acceptance of a man used to life's hard knocks, closed his workshop with a simple sign. Gone for materials. Indefinitely. Gathered a few essential tools, and left with Ami. They traveled not as merchant and escort, but as 2 refugees from a truth no one wanted spoken. They avoided main roads, sticking to forest paths and riverbanks, their pace swift but cautious. The attack in Ryuzui had shattered any illusion of secrecy. Someone, a village, a syndicate, a collector of bloodline traits, was actively hunting Uzumaki signatures. Ami kept the crimson stone in her hand now, its warmth a constant comfort and warning. Kurama's presence within it was watchful, a low-grade growl in the back of her mind. Tetsu moved with a new awareness, his senses, honed by a lifetime of reading the grain of wood and the strength of materials, now extended to the environment, watching for the unnatural stillness of an ambush. Naruto, back in Konoha, felt their peril like a constant, gnawing ache in his spirit. The link through the stone was a thin thread of awareness, but it transmitted their tension, their exhaustion, the echoes of Tetsu's pain from wounds that were healing with uncanny speed but still hurt. Each pulse of their fear cost him. He sat through council meetings on agricultural policy, his mind split, a part of him walking the dangerous paths of the land of fire with them. The silver in his hair had spread, a frost creeping from his temples. The skin under his eyes was permanently shadowed, not from lack of sleep, but from a deep, spiritual expenditure. "You are burning your own life force to bank theirs," the sad one observed, her voice thick with concern. "The guiding seal for Ami, the constant vigilance for Tetsu through the stone, these are not one-time payments. They are a tax on your soul." "It is the binder's burden," the scholar added, its tone grimly approving. "To connect is to carry. In Uzushio, master sealers often aged prematurely. They bore the weight of the seals that maintained the city's harmony." Naruto didn't need the explanation. He felt it in the heaviness of his limbs, in the way the vibrant, boundless energy that had defined him now had a finite, taxed quality. He was sharing his legendary vitality, the gift of his blood and Kurama, with the scattered embers of his clan. It was the only way to keep them from flickering out. The political pressure in Konoha was tightening like a vice. The clan council's opposition had moved from words to action. Budget requests for the proposed Historical and Cultural Preservation Archive, the innocuous name he'd given his Uzumaki project, were mysteriously delayed or denied. Permits for renovating a small, disused building on the village outskirts were lost. Shikamaru reported subtle whispers among the older jonin, questioning the Hokage's recent singular focus. Then came the direct challenge. It arrived not as a missive, but as a person. A small, stooped man with sharp eyes and the bearing of a scholar, escorted into his office by a tight-lipped Koharu Yuditane. "Lord Seventh," Koharu said, her voice devoid of warmth. "This is Historian Enji, from the Konoha Archives Special Collections Division. He has concerns regarding some of the materials you have recently accessed." Historian Enji bowed shallowly. "Hokage-sama. My apologies for the intrusion. It has come to my attention that you have reviewed the sealed folios pertaining to the Whirlpool Country Treaty of Alliance, Year 34, and the subsequent logistical reports from the Third Shinobi War's Eastern Theater. These are sensitive documents. Their interpretation requires specialized context." His smile was thin, professional. "I am here to offer that context, and to ensure no misunderstandings arise from a cursory reading." It was a blockade. They were sending a minder to control the narrative, to explain away the evidence of betrayal with context, to gaslight him with bureaucracy. Naruto felt the fiery one's rage flare within him. He kept his face calm. "Thank you, Historian Enji. I appreciate the offer. However, my reading was quite thorough. The context I found most illuminating was the timing. The request for reinforcements from Uzushio, and the order from the Konoha War Council to hold the Second Fleet in port for additional inspections that coincided perfectly with the arrival of Iwa's Sabata Corps. A remarkable coincidence, wouldn't you say?" Enji's smile didn't slip, but his eyes hardened. "The fog of war, Hokage-sama. Difficult decisions were made under tremendous pressure. The Second Fleet was our last major naval reserve. Deploying it risked leaving the Land of Fire's coast undefended. Hindsight, of course, offers a clarity the council lacked." "Hindsight," Naruto repeated softly. "And the last keeper's testimony, which explicitly names the fear of Uzushio's growing independent power as a factor in Konoha's strategic calculations. A fear documented in the private memos of council member Shimura Danzo, which I also reviewed." The room went very still. Koharu's lips were a white line. Danzo's name was a curse, a shadow everyone wanted to forget. Invoking him was a declaration of war on the sanitized history. "Danzo operated outside the council's authority," Koharu said icily. "His actions were his own." "Were they?" Naruto met her gaze. "His memos were addressed to the council. They were filed in the council's archives. His root operatives were funded through black budgets the council approved. Inaction in the face of a crime you see coming is complicity. Silence in its aftermath is conspiracy." He was quoting the keeper now, the words flowing through him with the echo's cold conviction. Historian Enji cleared his throat. "This is a highly contentious interpretation, Lord Seventh. One that, if pursued publicly, could cause irreparable damage to inter-village relations and to the morale of Konoha itself. Some truths are destructive. Some silences are poisonous," Naruto shot back. "They fester. They create a foundation of lies. I will not build the future on a poisoned well." The meeting ended in a frosty stalemate. Enji would be assigned to assist Naruto's future historical research. The blockade was now personal and constant. That night, the cost of his defiance became physically manifest. As he meditated, trying to strengthen the tenuous link to Ami and Tetsu, who were now nearing Konoha's borders, a sharp, searing pain lanced through his right arm. It was not muscular. It was deeper, in the pathways of his chakra network. He gasped, clutching his forearm. Under the skin, a section of his intricate chakra coil system, the very foundation of his power, had gone dark, brittle, and dead. It was a small section, perhaps the equivalent of one major tenketsu point, but the sensation was of a tree root desiccating and turning to dust. The overuse of life force-intensive Uzumaki arts, the spiritual strain of housing 7 ancient consciousnesses, the constant drain of supporting distant kin, it was exceeding his legendary resilience. The price? The Quiet One stated, its golden logic devoid of emotion. Chakra pathways can be regenerated with time and care, but this is a fundamental depletion. A permanent reduction in your maximum output and control in that limb. Each major revival, each significant act of clan binding, will claim a piece of you. This is the economy of resurrection. Naruto stared at his arm, flexing his fingers. A slight stiffness, a minute loss of fine control. To a shinobi of his caliber, it was a catastrophic loss. To the Hokage, it was a vulnerability. To the man trying to rebuild a clan, it was a warning written in his own flesh. You should stop, the sad one pleaded. There are other ways. Slower ways. There is no other way, the scholar countered. The world is moving against us. Slowness is surrender. The scattered ones will be picked off, or live and die in ignorant pain. This pain you feel is the pain of creation. Of pulling something back from the void. It should hurt. Naruto didn't answer. He simply sealed the deadened part of his network with a basic medical fuinjutsu, isolating it to prevent further degradation. He would adapt. He would fight with one arm metaphorically tied behind his back if he had to. 2 days later, Ami and Tetsu slipped into Konoha under the cover of a pre-dawn fog, using a little-known tunnel entrance that had been part of the Uzumaki contributions to the village's original design, a fact the scholar provided. They were brought directly to the small, crumbling building Naruto had secretly begun to prepare. It was an old, 2-story structure that had once been a sealing ink refinery, its walls still stained with faint, colorful residues. Tetsu stood in the main room, dusty light filtering through dirty windows, and looked at Naruto. He saw the Hokage, the hero of legend, but he also saw the silver hair, the new lines of strain, the slight, careful way he held his right arm. He saw not a savior, but a man shouldering a terrible weight. Without a word, Tetsu walked over and grasped Naruto's forearm in a firm, callous grip, the same arm with the deadened pathways. He felt the slight, unnatural coolness under the skin, the diminished chakra pulse. His own iron blood constitution thrummed in contrast, a vibrant, dense vitality. You're burning yourself to keep us warm, Tetsu stated, his voice rough. It's my responsibility, Naruto said, trying for a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Responsibility isn't suicide, Tetsu grunted. He released the grip and looked around the dilapidated room. This is the place? The school? It's a start, Ami said, her voice full of determined hope. She had already cleared a corner and placed a small, healthy potted fern there, which seemed to glow with extra verdance. Tetsu nodded slowly. Then he walked to the nearest load-bearing wall, placed his hands on it, and closed his eyes. Naruto and Ami watched as he pushed his chakra, not a shinobi-shaped energy, but the raw, dense, fortifying power of his bloodline, into the wood and plaster. They couldn't see a change, but they heard a faint, settling sound, as if the entire structure had just let out a sigh of relief and become more solid, more rooted to the earth. First lesson, Tetsu said, opening his eyes and turning to them. You don't just build with wood and stone. You build with will. With resilience. He looked at Naruto's arm. And you don't let one man carry the whole load. That's how things collapse. You distribute the weight. It was a carpenter's wisdom, and it was the first lesson of the new Uzumaki clan. Not about fuinjutsu theory or history, but about shared burden. In that moment, Naruto felt a shift. The revival was no longer something he was doing for them. Ami had found Tetsu. Tetsu was fortifying the foundation. They were beginning to carry the weight themselves. The cost to him was terrible, and would grow. But he was not alone in paying it. The first 2 stones of the new foundation were in place. The school, the archive, the clan, it had its first members. And as Tetsu set to work physically shoring up the building, and Ami began cleaning and charting out a garden in the overgrown yard, Naruto felt the deadened ache in his arm. It was a scar, a receipt for a life pulled back from the brink. He knew there would be more. The revival was not a triumphant resurrection. It was a grim, painful grafting of a severed limb back onto the tree of history. It bled. It hurt. And it was only just beginning. Chapter 8, The Refusal. The second memory vault was not in Konoha. According to the scholar's map, it lay far to the north, in the icy, wind-scoured foothills of the Land of Frost, hidden within a glacial crevasse that had not existed when the seal was laid. Getting there undetected as the Hokage was impossible. The political noose in Konoha was tightening daily. Historian Enji was a persistent, polite shadow. Budgets were frozen. The subtle campaign of whispers had escalated to open questioning in the Jonin commander's briefings. Is the Hokage's health affecting his judgment? Is this archive project a prudent use of resources during a delicate diplomatic period? Naruto needed an agent. Someone utterly trustworthy, capable of extreme discretion, and powerful enough to handle the dangers of a journey into a forgotten, sealed tomb. There was only one choice, and it pained him to make it. He found Sasuke Uchiha on the outskirts of the village, near the Nakano River, as he often was during his brief returns to Konoha. He was a silhouette against the setting sun, his one arm resting on his knee as he stared at the flowing water. Sasuke, Naruto called out, dispelling the subtle genjutsu that made him a non-entity to casual observers. Sasuke didn't turn. You're heavier. Not in body. In spirit. And your chakra, it tastes of old paper and salt. His perception, honed by the Rinnegan and a life of trauma, was unnervingly acute. Naruto sat beside him, the weight of his office and his secret pressing down. I need your help. Not for the village. For me. That got Sasuke's attention. He turned his dark eye toward Naruto, studying the silver streaks, the new gauntness. You're paying a price for something. Something big. Naruto told him. Not everything, but enough. He spoke of the last Keeper's Scroll, of the systematic erasure, of the echoes in his mind, of Ami and Tetsu. He spoke of the cost in his hair, in his chakra pathways. He held out his right arm, letting Sasuke sense the deadened, ashen section of his network. Sasuke listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When Naruto finished, he looked back at the river. So, the world's hero carries the ghosts of a murdered clan. And you want to drag more of them into the light. Why? Because they deserve to be remembered. Because the people carrying their blood deserve to know why they hurt. Sentiment. Sasuke stated, the word flat. The same sentiment that binds you to this village, even when its elders conspire against you. It's a weakness they exploit. Is it weakness? Naruto asked, his voice quiet. You atoned for the Uchiha by wandering, by protecting from the shadows. You chose a form of remembrance. This is mine. But I can't do this next part alone. The second vault is in the Land of Frost. I can't leave Konoha now. If I do, the council will use it as proof I'm unstable, and they'll lock everything down. They might even move against Ami and Tetsu for their own safety. Sasuke was silent for a long time. The water burbled. What's in this vault? More echoes. More knowledge. And, according to the map, it's a weapon vault. Not for offensive tools, but for defensive ones, barrier cores, city-wide protection matrices. The kind of knowledge that could make a place safe. Truly safe. The implication was clear. It was knowledge that could protect the nascent Uzumaki gathering point. You want me to go? To open it? To invite more ghosts into your head? Sasuke's tone was not disapproving, merely analytical. I want you to be my conduit. To bring back what's there. A recording, a transcript. And to offer the echoes they're the same choice I gave the ones here. To join the chorus or to rest. Sasuke stood up, brushing dirt from his pants. I'll go. Not for your clan. Not for your sentiment. But because you're my friend. And you're asking. He paused, his Sharingan spinning to life for a moment, capturing Naruto's weary, determined face. And because the world that did this to your clan is the same world that produced Madara, and Obito, and the endless cycle of hatred. Maybe breaking one secret open will loosen others. It was as close to philosophical agreement as Sasuke would give. The journey to the Land of Frost was a trial of ice and silence. Sasuke moved like a shadow over the tundra, his Rinnegan allowing him to sense chakra distortions far beneath the ice. He found the crevasse, a deep, blue slit in a glacier that hummed with a faint, familiar resonance. The entrance seal was more degraded than the one in Konoha, battered by millennia of ice and pressure. It was a spiral of fading light, struggling to maintain its form. Sasuke, no master of Fuinjutsu but possessing the ultimate dojutsu for perceiving chakra structure, analyzed it. The lock was the same, Uzumaki blood, and an intent of preservation. He had neither. But he had Naruto's chakra, given to him in a small, crystalline storage seal, a vial of liquid, spiraling energy. He pricked his finger, let a drop of his own blood fall, a gamble, but the Uchiha and Uzumaki were distant cousins, both descendants of the sage, and then shattered the crystal, bathing the fading seal in Naruto's potent, signature chakra. The glacier groaned. The seal flared, fighting the foreign signature, but Naruto's chakra was overwhelming, insistent, and carried the psychic imprint of the other echoes. With a sound like cracking stone, the ice wall parted. The space inside was different. Not a void, but a cavern of pure, crystalline ice, glowing with an internal blue light. In the center, floating above a dais, was not a set of plinths, but a single, massive, and terrifyingly complex seal. It looked like a frozen explosion, a mandala of interlocking barriers and containment fields all centered on a core of pulsing, deep crimson. This was the master seal for the weapon vault. And arrayed around the walls of the cavern, encased in ice like insects in amber, were figures. Dozens of them. Not echoes and seals, but preserved bodies, held in perfect stasis. Uzumaki. The vault's guardians, or its final prisoners. A voice, not an impression but a real, cracking, aged voice, echoed from the central seal. An Uchiha. And yet, you carry his scent. The heir's scent. The last keeper's key. A figure coalesced from the light of the central seal, not an echo, but a projection. An old man with long, crimson hair turned white at the roots, his face a mask of severe dignity and profound exhaustion. He wore the robes of a Uzushio elder. I am Sento, Master Warden of the Adamantine Vault, the projection said. You are not the heir. Where is he? He cannot come, Sasuke said, his voice echoing in the icy chamber. He sent me. He offers you what he offered the others in the Konoha Vault. A place in his consciousness. A chance to be remembered. To share your knowledge. Sento's eyes, a piercing blue, swept over Sasuke. The Uchiha. Cursed with eyes that see too much, and a history of destruction to match our own. An ironic messenger. He gestured to the frozen figures around them. We are not mere echoes here, Uchiha. We are the final custodians. We sealed ourselves with the vault's core to maintain its integrity as our city fell. Our bodies are here. Our souls are woven into the barriers. We are the seal. To leave is to unravel the last great work of Uzushio. To release the knowledge within, carelessly. He doesn't want to release it carelessly, Sasuke argued, though he felt out of his depth. He was a man of action, not negotiation with ghosts. He wants to use it to protect the new ones he's gathering. The survivors. Survivors? Sento's expression flickered with something, hope, instantly crushed by bitterness. Scattered dregs. Ignorant of the glory they spring from. What does this heir plan to do with them? Form a new village? A new target for the world's fear? A school. An archive. A place of healing. Sento laughed, a dry, hollow sound. Naivete. The world does not allow healing for a wound it inflicted. It only allows scar tissue, if you are lucky. We chose a different path. We chose to preserve the pinnacle of our art here, in perfection, until a time when the world was worthy of it. Or until it was forgotten entirely, which is its own form of safety. He has succumbed to the preservation impulse. The scholar's voice whispered through Sasuke's tenuous link to Naruto. A common failing of our master sealers. They fall in love with the perfection of the seal, forgetting it was meant to protect something that lives. Sasuke felt Naruto's will pushing through him, a desperate plea. He needs them. The defensive knowledge. To protect Ami, Tetsu, the others. The heir believes the world can be made worthy, Sasuke said, forcing the sentiment past his own cynicism. He's paying for it with his own life force. He's diminishing himself to pull your people back from the brink. Sento's projection wavered. For a moment, the severe mask cracked, revealing an agony of millennia. He looked at his own frozen body, then at the others. We have been here so long. Holding the line against entropy. The silence, it is absolute. To hear of the outside, of an heir, it is a torment. He closed his eyes. But to abandon our post? To trust a Konoha-raised boy, however well-intentioned, with the adamantine siege matrices? The arts that could make a city impervious, or could be inverted to become a prison from which nothing escapes. No. The refusal was absolute, final. It was not born of malice, but of a duty so deeply ingrained it had become identity. They would rather be perfect, forgotten guardians than risk their legacy being misused. He offers you a choice. Sasuke pressed, a last effort. To join him. To see the world through his eyes. To advise him. And be complicit in what we fear will be his inevitable failure? Sento shook his head. No, Uchiha. Tell the heir this, we honor his effort. We feel his pain. But we remember the betrayal too clearly. We remember the taste of allied promises turned to ash. We will keep our vigil. We will hold the perfect knowledge here in the ice. If he truly rebuilds something worthy, something that echoes not the fear of Uzushio but its spirit of protection, then perhaps a future heir may find us again. But not now. The world is not ready. And he is not ready. The projection began to fade. The central seal's light pulsed, reinforcing the barriers. The offer was rejected. They are choosing oblivion over risk. The sad one mourned in the shared mental space. They are choosing principle over life, the fiery one countered, with a trace of respect. Sasuke felt a complex twist of emotions from Naruto through their link, crushing disappointment, but also a grim understanding. These were not angry spirits or willing echoes. These were soldiers who had died at their posts and refused to believe the war was over. Is there nothing? Sasuke asked the fading Sento. No record? No fragment of knowledge for him? Sento paused, almost gone. The vault's existence is its own lesson. Some things cannot be revived. Some choices are final. Tell him to tend to the living. The dead have made their peace with their duty. With that, the projection vanished. The ice wall resealed, leaving Sasuke standing alone in the howling wind of the glacier. He had failed in his primary mission. No new echoes. No defensive matrices. But he had succeeded in delivering a message, one far heavier than any scroll. Revival had limits. Not all of the dead wanted to be saved. Some legacies were tombs, not foundations. He turned and began the long journey back to Konoha, carrying not the power to protect a new clan, but the sobering truth that the past could not always be redeemed, only remembered, and sometimes, left to its eternal, silent watch. Naruto's burden, he knew, had just grown heavier with the weight of a refusal.